Hi, Leo. Welcome to your love and relationship reading for the month of July. I'm trying to do my July videos early because my nephew is going to be born anytime now, and I hope to be spending most of my time next month with him. So, with that said, these are generalized readings, so not everything in the reading may pertain to you. I am available to answer any questions as well as to do private readings and can be reached at mantraflowtarot@gmail.com. I like to start off with the reading for my singles and then I move into a reading for my couples. So, where you're at right now is it looks like we have the strength card, which has to do with, of course, strength, has to do with being strong. This has to do with overcoming certain situations, but it also touches on handling things with grace and compassion. There's a gentleness that is profound. And I think that when you think of strength and you think of somebody who's loving and caring, the gentleness is such a huge part of it. And I think it's that tenderness that, you know, guides you through these certain situations. What's covering you right now is the Five of Swords, so this could indicate that, the strength is needed to get through the situation in regards to the Five of Swords, you not seeing eye to eye with someone. And I really think that, it's going to require you taking a step back and saying, well, you know what, maybe I need to go about this a different way to find some sort of compromise because it doesn't look like one is going to be reaching. I mean, so much, in fact, that we have the Five of Wands, more conflict. The good news, though, about the five, when you think of numerology, it symbolizes, that a situation is about to change. And I think that this change is going to come in regards to the strength that you're going to have to get through this situation. Understanding, trying to see things through other people's perspective. What am I going to do? This feeling of being stuck, a stalemate. You're going to have to explore other avenues how to get around this. Now, the foundation of this situation is the Ten of Cups, and this has to do with a situation where you were very, very happy in. In fact, we have the Ten of Cups and the Sun, and these two cards kind of go hand in hand. This is the foundation of the situation, and this is the recent past, which the recent past could be in your life, but, it could be a situation that's slowly fading out or referring to a situation that happened, within the past few months. But this was a relationship in which that you were very happy. This conflict seems to stem from it, and I'm wondering exactly what is exactly behind it. Why can't you guys see eye to eye? Now, you and the, excuse me, I keep wanting to say you and the environment of the future here, but that's not it. This has to do with your aspirations. This is the Six of Crystals, which is giving, balance, finding harmony. And I think that this has to do with you wanting to exit out of this situation and being able to see eye and eye again. Now, the next card is you in the environment of the future, and it's the Knight of Crystals. This has to do with maintaining control of the situation. So what I see happening is, and it's very interesting because the past three readings that I've done for my singles seem to all involve a situation where a relationship that's no longer, they're no longer with, however, it's still in the picture. It seems like there's a lot of processing for the month of July, and it seems like that's exactly what's happening. You're trying to work out these issues with this previous relationship control, and it seems like what you want is you want to be able to get into, work through this issue that we have, with the Five of Wands, the Five of Swords, and move into an area of understanding where you guys can find balance again. And when we look to the Knight of Crystals, which is you in the environment of the future, this has to do with because right now I think it feels like with all this conflict, that's everything is just out of control. And this has to do with you being in a collective state, things going back to normal, so to speak. And so I'm thinking that there's going to be a reconciliation with this relationship, because the next card in regards to the outcome is the Wheel of Fortune, which has to do with, abundance, but also it has to do with, understanding that you can't have good without the bad. You have to have balance. And right now, it just seems like, you can't find that balance. And I think ultimately that's what you want with the Six of Crystals. And I believe that this symbolizes, coming together, or, with understanding that, things aren't always going to be great, that you're always going to have ups and downs, because you can't have one without the other. You're always going to be faced with good and bad. That's just life, and it just can't be any other way. But you have to find an understanding and a way that you guys could deal with things together, a common ground, a compromise. And I think with the strength, in the space that you're at, I think things will work out with you guys again. So with that said, I am going to move into a reading for my couples. Okay. So, the first card in the spread is the Four of Wands, and this represents what you're bringing into this relationship. This signifies a very strong space within your life. You are at a space where you are doing a lot of celebrating. You are wanting to move into the space within your life where you are going to make a commitment, or, continue to work on that commitment with your partner. Where you are now in regards to this person is the Ten of Crystals, and I think that, this touches on the Four of Wands, which has to do with working towards that ultimate goal, harmony, happiness. Two old people sitting on the porch holding hands, so to speak, okay? Watching your grandkids play out in the field. The next card has to do with what you're hoping to get from this relationship now, and this is the King of Swords. By the looks of this card, the supporting cards, it looks like, you guys are going through a somewhat difficult time. You guys are going through some hardships right now. This has to do with, ultimate honesty. This also has to do with instinct. You have very keen instincts. So, and that comes out at the end, but I'll get to that in a minute. Pay attention to what you're feeling and acknowledge how smart you are. This has to do with the come to Jesus moment, so to speak, where you are going to lay your cards out on the table and express your wants, needs, and expectations. This has to do with you calling your partner out on something, so to speak, you asking for honesty. And you're going to be very direct at it, okay? You're wanting clarity. Now, where your partner is, or excuse me, what your partner's bringing into this relationship is the Wheel of Fortune. And I love the Wheel of Fortune, and I touched on this in my last spread, where it's a perfect blend of harmony and chaos. You can't have one without the other. This has to do with abundance, and he or she has entered into this relationship with a great attitude, which I really think complements, you being in the space with the Four of Wands. Now, the next two cards are what I think the King of Swords is really touching on, which is the Nine of Wands and the Tower. And the Nine of Wands is where your partner's at right now. I think that right now you guys are going through a difficult time, and it's going to take work to get things back on track again. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, okay? But it's going to take some work. Now, we have the Tower here. This has to do with what your partner's hoping to get from this relationship. This has to do with the change. Something has to change within this relationship. And I really think that between the King of Swords and the Tower, something is going to happen, okay? And during this time, you really need to be aware of your gut instincts throughout this, okay? Now, how you see him is the Two of Swords, and I think that the feeling I'm getting from your partner is that he or she can be, they have these walls up, and it's funny. I really think that this has to do with experiences that this person has had, that from the past that they brought into this relationship, burdens that we all carry, with each other from experiences, relationships that we've had in the past. And sometimes it's like, why do you even have, these walls up? Why are you being defensive, and why won't you let me penetrate these inner vulnerabilities? And I think that you're going to have a come to Jesus moment, so to speak, when you channel the energy of this King of Swords and address this issue with the Tower. Things are going to change. However, I think things are going to change in a positive light, because we do have the Three of Cups here, which has to do with celebrating and harmony, and which is how this person sees you. I see this person wanting to, celebrate and move forward with this relationship with you. But in order to do so, you need to channel the energy of the High Priestess, which I keep saying instinct throughout this reading, but it's true. You need to listen to your inner voice, and I think really follow it throughout this situation. And I think that inner voice will direct you to the right path that you need to follow, but you need to stay true to that inner voice to work through these issues. We have the Four Wands, the Ten of Crystals, which talks about, harmony and, wanting to move forward. And I think that every relationship, no matter what, is always going to have ups and downs. That's just how it is. That's how life is. You can't have one without the other, which I think is another theme for the month of July, is understanding, balance and finding that balance in all things. But with that said, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at mantraflowtarot@gmail.com. Thanks, you guys.